They say surprises are a test of love, but no one tells you that sometimes the person who fails it isn't the one you're surprising. I hadn't planned it. The idea just hit me that morning while frosting cupcakes for a catering order. My playlist was humming soft jazz. The air smelled like vanilla and espresso, and the quiet hum of the mixer gave my mind space to wander, which is usually dangerous for me. Julian had been working late again. Deadlines, he said. Client revisions. The kind of words that sound responsible and noble until they start sounding rehearsed. Still, I trusted him. We'd been together for 5 years. Lived together for 2. Shared everything from grocery lists to Netflix passwords to plans of someday renovating a small farmhouse near the coast. So I thought, why not remind him what he's working so hard for? A homemade lunch, a bright smile, a small gesture. Something to pull him out of the gray hum of architectural blueprints. I even packed it in a brown woven basket lined with a gingham cloth, 2 gourmet sandwiches, chocolate croissants, and a thermos of his favorite dark roast. The kind of lunch that says, I know you're tired, but I still see you. I remember glancing at my reflection before leaving. Hair tied in a loose bun, a soft beige dress dusted with flour. I looked casual but warm, like the kind of woman who brings sunlight into offices that run on fluorescent lights. By the time I reached his firm, the clouds were moving fast, heavy silver-edged things that made the city shimmer in uneven light. Pierce and Langley Architects sat on the 12th floor of a sleek glass building downtown, the kind of place that smelled like ambition and money. The receptionist smiled as I stepped in, or maybe grimaced. Hard to tell. Hi, I said, balancing the basket. I'm here for Julian Pierce. He's expecting me. She blinked. Oh, he didn't mention any appointment. Good, I said cheerfully. It's a surprise. Her lips tightened, a flicker of something I couldn't name. Maybe pity. Maybe warning. The elevator chimed, and I stepped inside before she could say more. The hallway upstairs was quieter than I remembered. Too quiet. The hum of printers, the muted chatter of phones, all dimmed when I walked in, like a movie scene where the soundtrack fades just before the plot twist. I smiled at a young intern carrying coffee. She avoided eye contact and practically ran past me. Strange. Julian's office door was half open. I could see him, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, brow furrowed over some sketches. God, he looked good when he worked. Focused, confident, that half-smirk he wore when an idea clicked. But before I could knock, someone laughed inside. A woman's voice, low, musical, familiar in a way that tugged at something instinctive. Julian, you're impossible, she said between soft chuckles. You really think the client won't notice if we move the stairwell there? He laughed too. Easy. Comfortable. That was the sound that hurt, these. I stepped in. Maybe the client won't, but I definitely noticed. They both froze. Julian's pen dropped from his hand. The woman turned mid-20s, caramel hair twisted in a sleek ponytail, silk blouse too elegant for an intern. Her eyes widened, then curved into a perfect, practiced smile. Oh, she said, her tone dripping honey. You must be Ray. I blinked. I must be. Julian stood up so fast his chair nearly toppled. Ray. This is what are you? I lifted the basket slightly, pretending not to notice the panic in his eyes. Lunch. I thought I'd surprise you. Oh, the woman said again, tilting her head. You're the girlfriend. Yes, I said evenly. And you are? She extended a hand like we were meeting at a networking event. Callie, the new intern. Julian looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him. Oh, I said lightly, shaking her hand. Nice to meet you, Callie. How long have you been interning? Her lips twitched. A couple of weeks. Though technically we go way back. Julian's head snapped toward her. Callie. But she didn't stop. Her voice softened, playful. Oh, you didn't tell her? We used to date. Years ago. It's funny running into each other here, right? My fingers tightened on the basket handle. I smiled. Because that's what you do when the world tilts and you refuse to fall. Funny, I repeated. I love surprises. Julian opened his mouth, stammering, but I didn't let him speak. I looked at Callie, holding her gaze. It's nice that you two reconnected. Small world. Then to Julian, you always said you had good taste in design, apparently in people too. I placed the basket gently on his desk. Enjoy lunch, Jules. I made your favorite, the sandwich with the basil spread. His lips parted, a protest forming, but I cut him off with a smile sharp enough to draw blood. Oh, don't look so guilty. I love surprises. Don't you, Jules? And with that, I turned and walked out, the room silent behind me except for the sound of Callie's faint, amused exhale. I didn't cry in the elevator. I refused to. Instead, I stared at my reflection in the mirrored wall, the woman with perfect posture, steady eyes, lips curved in something dangerously close to a smirk. Raina Callan didn't cry over assumptions. She gathered facts. When the elevator doors opened on the ground floor, the receptionist looked up, startled to see me so soon. Forgot something? She asked softly. No, I said, my voice calm. I just remembered something important. What's that? People lie, I said. But timing doesn't. Outside, the wind had picked up. I walked down the block, my heels clicking against the pavement like punctuation marks in an argument I wasn't finished having. Nora's Cafe was 3 streets away, a cozy corner spot with mismatched chairs and the best gossip this side of town. She was my best friend since college, the kind of woman who could read your silence faster than your words. She looked up from behind the counter when I entered, her eyes scanning my face once before she sighed. What did he do? I dropped into a chair. How do you always know? Because you look like a woman holding in a TED Talk on betrayal. I have to laugh. He has a new intern. Nora raised a brow. And she's his ex. Her brows shot up. You sure? She told me. While he was there? Yes. Oh, that's bold. I like her nerve. Not her morals, but her nerve. She's either delusional or dangerous, I muttered. I just don't know which. Nora slid a cup of coffee toward me. So, what's the plan? I don't have one yet, I admitted. But something's off. Everyone in that office looked nervous. Like they were watching a soap opera live. Then maybe it is one, she said dryly. You sure you're not the only one surprised here? I paused. Meaning maybe he didn't expect her to show up either. Or maybe he did, and now he's choking on it. Her words lingered. Because as much as I wanted to paint Julian the villain, there had been genuine shock in his eyes. Fear, even. Still, that didn't erase the fact that he'd been hiding something. I'm not ready to confront him, I said finally. Not until I know what's actually going on. Nora leaned back, eyes gleaming. Then you're going to do what you do best. Bake. Observe. That night, Julian came home later than usual. The moment the door opened, I caught the faint scent of perfume that wasn't mine. Floral, expensive. Callie's, probably. He dropped his keys on the counter. Ray, can we talk? Sure, I said, not looking up from my laptop. About work? Or your ex-intern? He groaned. Please don't call her that. What should I call her then? The reincarnation of bad judgment. He rubbed his forehead. Ray, she showed up unexpectedly. I didn't know she applied. HR handled the hire. And you didn't think to mention that your ex is now your intern? I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. Oh, I see. The classic hide it so it's not a problem approach. Timeless. He sighed, sitting beside me. She means nothing. It was years ago. She's just trying to get experience. By flirting with her former boss? His silence was a confession wrapped in cowardice. Julian, I said softly, I've known you long enough to recognize when you're lying to yourself. He looked up, eyes tired. I didn't do anything wrong. Maybe not yet, I said, closing my laptop, but you're about to, if you keep treating my instincts like paranoia. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. You always said I was the best thing that ever happened to you, I said quietly. Prove it. Then I stood, walked to the kitchen, and poured myself a glass of water, my hands steady, my heart not. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the city outside. Car horns, sirens, laughter from the bar downstairs. Every sound felt distant, like I was underwater. Julian slept beside me, turned away, his breathing slow and steady. I thought about Kelly's smirk, her tone, the ease with which she inserted herself into my story like she'd never left it. Something told me she wasn't there for a second chance at architecture. She was there for him, or for something worse. But whatever her plan was, she didn't expect me to start one of my own. The next morning, I texted Nora. Me, thinking of dropping by Julian's office again today. Nora, ooh, undercover girlfriend arc? Me, more like detective with cupcakes. Nora, take notes. Gossip spreads faster than truth. Listen before you talk. I smiled. That was Nora's superpower, turning advice into warnings that sounded poetic. As I got ready, I looked in the mirror again. Same reflection as yesterday, but this time, my eyes weren't just calm. They were calculating. Because if Callie thought she could play a game, she'd soon learn. I never lose when the prize is the truth. It's funny how silence carries its own sound, especially in offices that thrive on whispers. By the time I walked into Pierce and Langley again, the air itself seemed to hum with rumors. The kind that slide through walls, travel in emails, and live inside glances exchanged by people pretending not to look. I hadn't told Julian I was coming. This time there was no lunch basket, no sweet surprise. Just me, a tote bag, and curiosity wrapped in polite intentions. The receptionist tried not to react when she saw me. "Oh, Miss Callan," she said carefully, as if I might explode. "Mr. Pierce is in a meeting." "That's all right," I said smoothly. "I'm just here to drop something off." She hesitated, then nodded. I took the elevator up, my heart steady but my mind sharp. This wasn't about jealousy anymore. It was about pattern recognition, something bakers and detectives have in common. When I stepped into the 12th floor lobby, I noticed it immediately. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. People shifted papers that didn't need shifting. One man suddenly found his pen very interesting. I smiled, offering a small wave to a woman by the copier. She gave me a quick nod, the kind that says I'm not getting involved. It confirmed what I already knew. They were talking about me. Fine. Let them. As I walked past the open cubicles, I heard fragments of voices behind me. "She's the girlfriend, right?" "Yeah, the one who showed up last week." Heard Callie called her honey by accident. Can you imagine? The boss's favorite, clearly. He's always in her office. I paused, pretending to check my phone, letting their words filter through me. The boss's favorite. That phrase lingered like perfume in stale air. I took a slow breath and walked on. Julian's glass-walled office stood at the end of the hall, blinds half closed. Through the slits, I could see him gesturing at some layout on his computer, and beside him, Callie, leaning too close for comfort. It wasn't the proximity that bothered me. It was the ease. She was laughing again. Always laughing. Like she knew the exact pitch that cracked my patience. I turned away before either of them noticed me. Instead, I headed for the break room. Small talk, observation, subtle infiltration. I could manage that. There, by the coffee machine, a group of employees were mid-conversation until I entered. Then silence. Coffee cups paused midair. Someone coughed. I smiled politely. "Don't stop on my account. I'm not contagious." A younger intern, nervous, maybe new, laughed too loudly. "Oh no, we weren't, just talking about the client drafts." "Of course," I said. Those always make for thrilling gossip. The group exchanged awkward smiles, and one by one, they slipped away. Except one. She was older, maybe in her late 50s, with silver-streaked hair and kind, tired eyes. She stayed seated, stirring her tea slowly. When everyone else left, she looked up at me. "You must be Raina," she said. Her tone wasn't cruel, but there was something weighty about it. "Ray," I corrected with a smile. "And you are?" "Margot. HR." She sipped her tea. "I was wondering when you'd come back." "Why is that?" She tilted her head. "Because curiosity never stays home for long." There it was, the first real sentence of truth I'd heard all day. "Everyone's been kind of tense," I said carefully. "I hope my last visit didn't cause any trouble." "Oh, trouble has its own schedule," she said, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "But Callie Parker seems to speed it up." My pulse quickened. "You know her?" "I knew of her," Margot said. "Before she disappeared the first time." "The first time?" She looked at me, eyes narrowing slightly. "That girl's been around before you think she was." I blinked. "Meaning?" Meaning history has a way of circling back, especially when people don't learn the first lesson. Before I could ask more, someone called her name from down the hall. She stood, smoothing her blouse. You didn't hear that from me. And just like that, she was gone, leaving behind more questions than answers. I found Nora that afternoon at her favorite cafe table, already sipping her iced latte like a woman who'd been waiting for the drama to arrive. Well, she asked, did the soap opera renew for another season? Apparently, I said, dropping my bag into the chair opposite her. And we've got a new supporting character, Margot, from HR. Nora leaned forward. Tell me everything. She said Callie's been around before. Like a not new. Nora tapped her straw thoughtfully. So your boyfriend's firm just rehired his ex under mysterious circumstances, and HR conveniently doesn't seem shocked? That's not workplace coincidence. That's PR suicide. I smirked. You always think like a strategist. That's why you keep me around. She sipped again, eyes gleaming. So what's the plan? I'm not sure yet. But Margot's tone, it wasn't gossipy. It was almost warning. Then listen, Nora said simply. Never walk into a man's office without knowing who's been sitting in it. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I stared out the window. I just can't figure out if Julian's stupid or scared. Maybe both, she said dryly. But Ray, you've got to remember, perception becomes truth in places like that. If people think she's the boss's favorite, it doesn't matter what's real. Then I'll make it my job to find out what is real. She smiled, that slow approving grin she gets when I turn from baker to detective. That's my girl. Just don't lose your softness over someone else's secrets. I won't, I promised. But part of me already knew that softness was cracking. The next few days, I started observing patterns. I dropped by the office under small pretenses, delivering a forgotten charger, a quick coffee stop, a casual, hey, thought I'd walk you to lunch. Each time I saw the same thing. Callie always near Julian, sometimes standing just behind his chair, her laugh punctuating his words like exclamation marks. One morning, I caught her in the hallway alone, phone pressed to her ear. She didn't see me at first. Yes, it's going exactly as planned, she whispered, her tone sharp. He still doesn't suspect a thing. My heart stilled. I stepped closer. But when she turned, the smile returned instantly, bright, fake polished. Ray. Hi. You startled me. Sorry, I said lightly. Didn't mean to interrupt your plan. She blinked. What? Your call. Sounded important. Oh, that. She laughed, waving it off. Just catching up with my mom. She worries too much about me. Of course. I smiled. Moms always do. We stood there for a second, a silence thick enough to spread frosting on. She tilted her head. You know, Julian really admires your business. He talks about how grounded you are. Does he? Yeah. It's sweet, actually. You two are so different. He's all strategy and deadlines, and you're comfort and warmth. Like opposites that somehow work. I kept smiling. Funny. I always thought opposites clash. Her eyes glinted, challenge accepted. Only if one of them starts feeling threatened. And just like that, she walked off, heels clicking like applause to her own performance. I exhaled slowly. Threatened? No. But intrigued? Absolutely. That night, Julian came home earlier than usual, carrying takeout from our favorite Thai place, his peace-offering routine. Truce, he asked, holding up the bag like a white flag made of noodles. I crossed my arms. Depends. Is your intern joining us? He winced. Ray. Relax, I said, taking the bag. I'm kidding. Mostly. He sighed. You've been dropping by the office. So you've noticed. People talk, Ray. It's awkward. People talk because it's awkward, I said sharply. Maybe if your intern didn't act like your shadow, there'd be less to talk about. He ran a hand through his hair. She's just enthusiastic. I'm mentoring her. Mentoring her in what, exactly? Professional boundaries. He dropped his gaze. I can't have this argument every night. Then tell me the truth once, and we won't have to. He didn't answer. And that silence told me everything. Later, as he slept, I scrolled through my phone. Not to spy, just to remember. Our photos, our messages, the years we built together. Every laugh, every holiday, every I love you text that now felt rehearsed. People think heartbreak is sudden, one explosion. But it's not. It's erosion. Quiet, slow, invisible until you're standing on a cliff that used to be solid. I thought of Callie's whisper, Margot's warning, Nora's advice. The next morning, I printed out a visitor pass under the guise of updating HR documents. I wanted to see what Margot meant. I found her by the file cabinets. You said Callie's been around before, I said softly. What did you mean? She hesitated, then leaned closer. Off the record? Always. She interned here 3 years ago. Didn't finish the program. Left suddenly after some issues. What kind of issues? Confidential ones. I frowned. She and Julian? I didn't say that. But you didn't deny it. Her lips tightened. Be careful, Raina. Some people build entire careers out of being underestimated. By the time I left the building, my mind was racing. Callie wasn't just an intern. She was a returning storm, and Julian either forgot to board up the windows or chose not to. When I reached Nora's cafe, she looked up from her laptop and raised an eyebrow. You've got that face again. What face? The one that says you're about to bake a plan. I smiled faintly. Something like that. Margot said Callie interned there before. Nora whistled. Recycled drama. Classic. Apparently, it ended badly. But no one wants to say why. Which means it's either scandalous or dangerous. Or both, I said. And I intend to find out which. She smirked. Welcome to the Whisper Network, darling. Just remember, in that world, truth's the last thing people serve. I looked down at my coffee, watching the milk swirl like secrets dissolving. Maybe she was right. But I wasn't planning to ask politely for the truth. I was going to bake it out of them, one crumb at a time. And if Callie Parker thought she could rewrite history by walking back into Julian's life, she was about to learn that I've made a career out of fixing what people try to ruin. Julian texted me 2 days after the office surprise, short, clipped, and polite, like I was a client instead of the woman who knew the freckle beneath his left ear. Dinner Friday? Let's talk, Ray. That was it. No apology, no explanation. Just an appointment. I told myself I'd go because I wanted clarity, not closure. But deep down, a part of me wanted to look him in the eye and see if he'd flinch, the way guilty men always do when the truth is sitting across from them wearing red lipstick. I chose that red deliberately, not too bold, not too forgiving. My reflection in the restaurant window smirked back at me as I stepped out of the cab. The place was one of those dimly lit, overpriced spots that served plates so small you felt like apologizing for eating. Julian had always liked control, even over aesthetics. He was already there, suit perfect, smile rehearsed. He stood when he saw me, that polite, guilty half grin I used to melt for. Ray, he said, voice soft, almost careful. Julian, I replied, taking my seat. You look composed. He exhaled, half laughing. You say that like it's a crime. I just remember you used to look happier to see me, I said, unfolding my napkin. He looked away, scanning the room, avoiding me. A waiter approached, placing menus before us. We ordered wine, though I knew he'd barely touch his. He only drank socially now, to maintain focus. The silence between us stretched, taut and loaded. So I started. Should I ask about your intern, or would you prefer to give me the company-approved statement? Julian's jaw flexed. Ray, it's not what it looked like. Callie's new. Shia overstepped. Overstepped. I echoed. By claiming she dated you in front of your entire team? He rubbed his forehead. She's immature. Trying to get attention. I didn't expect her to. Publicly humiliate me? I finished for him, smiling tightly. What a surprise. Before he could answer, a cheerful voice chimed from behind me. Oh my God, Julian. You're here. I turned. And of course, there she was. Callie Parker. The intern. Her hair was down tonight, styled to perfection. She looked effortlessly confident, the kind of confidence that came from knowing she could make people uncomfortable and still get away with it. What are you doing here? Julian's tone wavered between annoyance and panic. Oh, didn't you get my message? She said innocently. You said we'd talk about my mentorship plan this week. I figured since you were out, maybe I'd join. You don't mind, right, Raina? My name rolled off her tongue like a dare. I smiled. Too sweet to be real. Of course not, Callie. Pull up a chair. Let's all catch up. Julian muttered something under his breath that sounded like a prayer for patience. But it was too late. Callie had already waved a waiter over and ordered a drink like she belonged. So, Ray, she began, turning to me as if we were old friends. Julian told me you're in creative consulting. That's amazing. I'd love to hear how you manage balance in a relationship when your partner's always working. I blinked. Oh, it's simple. You just stop waiting for him to come home and start eating dinner without him. Her smile faltered for half a second. Julian shot me a warning glance. Callie, he said quietly, maybe now's not the time. But Callie leaned forward, her voice sugary. Oh no, it's fine. I'm just curious. Julian used to say you two had the perfect understanding. You gave him space, he gave you loyalty. Her eyes glittered when she said that word. Loyalty. Did he? I said lightly, sipping my wine. Funny. He never mentioned you when he was being loyal. Julian's hand slammed onto the table. The silverware rattled. That's enough, Callie. She looked startled, like she hadn't expected him to actually break his calm. Then her lips curled into a faint smirk. Satisfaction. She'd wanted the reaction. Of course, she said, rising slowly. Sorry, I didn't mean to make things awkward. Oh, I think we passed awkward about 5 minutes ago, I said, not even pretending to hide the sarcasm. She chuckled, tossed her hair back, and left, her perfume lingering like poison in the air. Julian sank back into his seat, pinching the bridge of his nose. Ray, why do you have to? Call out the woman who claimed she dated you? You're right, that was rude of me, I said sharply. Maybe I should have brought her flowers. He looked at me, anger flashing in his eyes. You're jealous, Ray. That's what this is. You don't trust me, so you're twisting everything. I stared at him. For a long time I said nothing. Because that's what liars hate most. Silence. Finally, I leaned in. You think I'm jealous? No, Julian. I'm observant. There's a difference. He leaned back, expression guarded. You're blowing this out of proportion. I tilted my head. Maybe. Or maybe you're underestimating what proportion looks like when you're caught. The waiter returned just then, oblivious, setting down our entrees. The smell of rosemary chicken filled the space between us, a cruel contrast to the tension that strangled the air. Julian didn't touch his food. Neither did I. He tried to redirect, to sound reasonable. You know me, Ray. You know I wouldn't do this. Callie's complicated. She's got a past. Oh. I asked, keeping my voice casual. Does that past happen to include you? His silence was answer enough. I smiled, a small, tired curve of my lips. You should have told me, Jules. Whatever this is, you could have trusted me with the truth. He looked almost pained. It's not like that. She's using me. Trying to manipulate me. I'm handling it. Handling it, I repeated. By inviting her to dinner? That wasn't planned, he said defensively. She showed up. You saw that. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him. But my instincts, the same instincts that once told me he was the one, now whispered something different. This wasn't just a fling. It felt orchestrated. Julian, I said finally, my tone soft but steady, whatever you're hiding, it's already showing. You just don't see it yet. He frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, I said, standing. Just that I've learned to pay attention to who enjoys chaos and who benefits from it. His eyes followed me as I picked up my purse. Where are you going? To dinner, I said, smiling faintly. Somewhere I can actually taste my food. I walked out before he could say another word. The night air was cool, sharp against my skin. I stood by the curb, waiting for a cab, when my phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. He doesn't know what she's capable of. Be careful. No signature. No context. Just that one chilling sentence. And for the first time since this all began, I wasn't angry. I was afraid. Because whoever sent that message wasn't wrong. Julian had always kept his home office locked. Not because he didn't trust me, but because organization was sacred. That's what he used to say. Now, as I stood in front of that same mahogany door, his words echoed like a bad joke. The key wasn't hard to find. People who think they're meticulous often hide things in predictable places, under trophies, inside file drawers labeled miscellaneous. It was a Thursday night. Julian was still at work, or at least that's what he'd texted. Late meeting, don't wait up. That used to mean he was ambitious. Now, it meant opportunity. I took a slow breath and turned the key. The click sounded louder than it should have, like a gunshot in an empty theater. His office smelled faintly of cedar and coffee. Everything was lined up perfectly. Books in symmetrical stacks, pencils sharpened to identical lengths, files alphabetized. Julian's obsession with order had always fascinated me. He liked the illusion of control. The question was over what. I moved to the desk. His laptop was closed but still warm. Next to it, a set of labeled folders sat in a neat stack. Contracts, clients, internal reports, personal. The last one caught my eye. I opened it carefully. Inside were printed emails, some mundane, others less so. The most recent chain stopped me cold. From Julian Pierce to redacted at consultingfirm.net. Subject: retainer renewal, confidential. Confirm next payment before Monday. Client must remain unaware of ongoing investigation. My heartbeat stumbled. Ongoing investigation? I scrolled through the next few printed pages, payment confirmations, invoices from a Kellen Reese investigations. I'd never heard the name, but the amounts were substantial. Thousands. And there, a note in Julian's handwriting, scrawled across one of the invoices. Protect her. No contact. No mistakes. My mouth went dry. Protect who? The folder grew heavier the deeper I went. Photos, old, creased. One in particular froze me mid-breath. Julian. Younger. Sunlight hitting his hair. His arm around someone. Kelly. Her smile looked the same. Rehearsed, polished, dangerous. The photo was dated 5 years ago. The timestamp in the corner told me everything. Long before she was his new intern. I sank into the desk chair, the air thick with betrayal. Julian and Callie weren't strangers. They had history, the kind that doesn't vanish quietly. But that note, protect her, it wasn't the language of a lover. It was the language of someone in fear. I copied the documents quietly, snapping photos with my phone. My hands shook, not from guilt, but from adrenaline. Every instinct screamed that I was on the edge of something big, something dangerous. I was placing the files back when I heard the front door open. Ray. Julian's voice floated down the hall. Panic shot through me. I shut the folder, slid it back, and flicked off the desk lamp. My pulse hammered as I backed away from the desk. He appeared in the doorway, loosening his tie, eyes tired but sharp. What are you doing in here? Think fast that I was looking for scissors, I said smoothly. You know, for the mail. His gaze darted to the desk. You never come in here because you never let me. I countered, but the mail needed cutting, and I figured I could risk contamination of your holy workspace. His lips twitched, half amusement, half suspicion. You didn't touch anything, did you? I smiled. Relax. I didn't rearrange your pencil army. But he wasn't convinced. He walked past me, scanning the desk like someone checking for fingerprints. I slipped out before he could notice the faintly displaced folder corner. In the kitchen, I pretended to make tea, forcing my hands to stop trembling. I heard the soft click of the office door locking again. Julian came out a few minutes later, the mask of calm back on his face. You okay? He asked. I stirred my tea slowly. Are you? He hesitated, then gave a hollow laugh. Work's been insane. Callie's been complicated. That's an understatement, I said lightly. Tell me, did you ever date her? He froze. Just enough to tell me everything. No, he said finally. Too fast. Too neat. I smiled faintly. Good to know. Because I found something interesting in your miscellaneous drawer. His eyes widened. What? Nothing serious, I said, sipping my tea. Just a receipt for truth. He stared at me like he was trying to read what I knew, and failing. That night, I didn't sleep. My mind kept replaying the words, protect her. By morning, I called Nora. She picked up on the second ring, her voice still half asleep. You sound like someone who either discovered infidelity or buried a body. Option 1, I said. But the corpse might be metaphorical. Explain. I told her everything. The emails, the payments, the photo. She was silent for a long time. Then in that crisp, calculating tone that made her such a force in PR, she said, "Collect truth like evidence, Ray. Don't waste emotions on guesses." "I have evidence." "You have pieces," she corrected. "But you don't have motive. That's what matters." She was right. If Julian was paying a private investigator, the question wasn't if he was hiding something. It was why. Later that day, I followed the trail. Kellen Reese Investigations had an address downtown. A small firm, private clientele. I called, posing as a potential client. The receptionist confirmed something that made my stomach twist. "Yes, Mr. Pierce renewed his contract last month. Would you like to schedule?" I hung up. Julian had lied about the payments. He was still paying them. When I got home, his car was already in the driveway. He was in the living room, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, the look he wore when he wanted to appear honest. "Hey," he said. "We need to talk." I sat across from him. "About what?" "The intern or the investigator?" He blinked, stunned. "How do you?" "I saw the emails, Julian." He rubbed his temples. "Ray, you don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I cut in. "You lied." Repeatedly. He leaned forward, desperation creeping into his tone. "I was protecting you from something." "Protecting me from what?" He hesitated. His eyes, I'd seen them angry, soft, passionate. But now they looked afraid. "There are things you don't know about Callie," he said finally. "She's not who you think she is." "Then tell me who she is," I demanded. He looked at me, really looked at me, then shook his head. "I can't." "You won't," I said coldly. "It's complicated," he whispered. "Just trust me." I laughed bitterly. "Trust you? You've lied about your past, your intern, your secret investigator, and you're asking me to trust you." He reached for me, but I pulled back. "Ray, please," he said. "If you dig into this, you'll get hurt." I studied him, the tremor in his voice, the genuine terror behind his eyes. For the first time, I realized something strange. Julian wasn't afraid of me. He was afraid for me. But fear and guilt looked too similar to tell apart. So I smiled, masking the storm inside. "Don't worry, Jules. I've never been afraid of a little truth." That night, I forwarded all the photos, files, and screenshots to a secure folder on my cloud, just in case. Because Nora was right. Emotions fade, but evidence? Evidence doesn't forget. And something told me this story was only getting darker. If betrayal had a scent, it would be cinnamon. Warm. Sweet. Comforting until it burns. My bakery, Crumb and Whimsy, was my haven. The air always smelled of sugar and home, two things my life had started to lack. It was my territory, the one place where I didn't feel like I was losing ground to someone else's secrets. So when Callie Parker walked through the glass door that Tuesday morning, sunlight bouncing off her smug little sunglasses, my first thought was, not here. She smiled as if we were meeting for brunch instead of after a near public humiliation. "Hi, Raina," she said, her tone syrupy. "Wow, this place is adorable. I didn't know you baked." My fingers froze around the pastry bag. "Some of us find therapy in honest work," I replied lightly. "Can I help you with something? Coffee?" Restraining order. She laughed. That soft, artificial laugh that never reached her eyes. "Actually, I came to apologize. I feel awful about the other night." "I really do." "Do you?" I asked, setting the piping bag down. "Because you seemed pretty comfortable turning dinner into a press conference." Her expression softened, practiced and polished. "You're right. I was out of line. I just panicked. Seeing Julian with someone, it stirred up old memories." "5-year-old memories, you mean?" I said coolly. That wiped the fake remorse right off her face. "So he told you?" I found out. I corrected. "Funny thing, he's not great at timelines." Callie tilted her head. "And yet you're still with him. That's dedication." "Or stupidity," I muttered, wiping my hands on a towel. "Depends on the day." She took a slow step closer, looking around at the pastry cases. You really built this place yourself? Yes, I said. Every inch. She smiled faintly. You even kept the old family name on your business license. Callan's Kitchen, right? That's so sentimental. My spine stiffened. That name wasn't public. I'd changed the branding before opening. Only the license used Callan's Kitchen legally. It was registered quietly, never advertised. How do you know that? I asked carefully. She blinked innocently. Oh, Julian mentioned something once about your dad helping you with the initial deposit. My heartbeat stumbled. My dad's been gone 3 years, I said. Her smile didn't falter. Oh, right. I must have misheard. No, she hadn't. That was the problem. Callie knew things she shouldn't. I appreciate the apology, I said briskly. But I've got work to do. She hesitated, then sighed dramatically. I just wanted to make things right. You and Julian, you have something special. I'd hate to see secrets ruin that. Her tone was too knowing, her eyes too sharp. Secrets. I repeated. She smiled sweetly. Everyone has them, Ray. Some of us are just better at hiding them. And with that, she turned, waved to my assistant, and walked out like she owned the floor. The bell over the door chimed behind her, light and cruel. I stood there, staring at the spot where she'd been, my pulse hammering. Someone was feeding her information. Someone close. Nora came by that afternoon for her usual almond croissant and crisis download. She took one look at my face and frowned. You look like you just found a roach in your souffle. Worse, I said. Callie was here, her eyebrows shot up. In your bakery? Yep. Said she came to apologize. Ended up knowing things about my business license and my dad. Nora's eyes narrowed. How? She said Julian told her. Did he? I don't know, I said softly. But if he did, he's either naive or stupid. And if he didn't, then someone's playing both of you, Nora finished. We sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the espresso machine filling the space. Then she said, You need to confront him. But calmly. No accusations, no drama. Make him talk. People trip faster when they think they're safe. So I waited. That night, Julian came over, unannounced, as if nothing were wrong. He carried a bag of takeout and that same weary charm that used to melt me. I figured you'd still be at the bakery, he said. So I brought dinner. Thanks, I replied, taking the bag. Callie came by today. The chopsticks froze midair. She what? She wanted to apologize. He set the food down. Ray, I told her to stay away from you. I mean it. She's unpredictable. She knew about my dad, I said quietly. About the business license. Things I never told her. His face drained of color. I didn't tell her that. Then how did she know? He rubbed the back of his neck, pacing. She must have looked into you. Looked into me? I echoed. Like, researched me? Ray, listen. No, Julian, I snapped. You listen. That woman knows details she couldn't have found without access to personal records. Either she's got someone helping her or you're not telling me the full story. He stopped pacing. His expression changed, guilt mixed with fear. She used to work for a rival firm, he said finally. Years ago. She was fired for leaking client data. I didn't know she was connected to me until she showed up at my office again. I stared at him. And you didn't think that was worth mentioning? I was trying to keep you out of it, he said quickly. She came back asking for a second chance. Said she wanted to make amends. I thought I could manage it. But she's playing games, Ray. Dangerous ones. And the investigator? I asked. Was that part of the game too? He sighed, his shoulders slumping. I hired him to find out who she's really working for. There's a lot of money tied up in those old projects, sensitive ones. If she leaks anything, I'm finished. I folded my arms. And you're sure this isn't about something else? He met my eyes, his gaze raw. I swear to you, Ray, I'm being framed. She's trying to ruin me. I wanted to believe him. His voice shook, his hands trembled. But there was still something off. Something that didn't fit. Then why does she know so much about me? I whispered. He didn't answer. Because he didn't know. Or worse, he did. After he left, Nora called. So, what's his excuse this time? He says he's being framed, I replied. She snorted. They always say that right before the plot twist. I don't know, Nora. He looked terrified. Fear and guilt were the same face, she said softly. The difference is in the eyes. I lay awake that night, the streetlight slicing gold lines across my ceiling. Every word Julian said replayed in my head, and every sentence ended in doubt. Maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe he was being framed. But the problem with maybes, they never sleep. So neither did I. I used to think rumors were harmless, like faint smoke that fades if you don't feed it air. But I learned that gossip, once it starts, isn't smoke. It's wildfire. And this one had my name, Julian's firm, and Callie's sugary smile all tangled inside the flames. It began innocently enough, or at least it looked that way. A barista from the cafe next to Julian's office came into my bakery one morning, stirring her latte absent-mindedly as she whispered, "You know, your boyfriend's firm's been in the news." I froze mid-frosting, the smell of vanilla and cinnamon thick in the air. News? I asked carefully, pretending to be casual. Something about a confidential design leak, she said. Someone posted snippets of their upcoming client project on some architecture blog. People are saying the leak came from the inside. Inside. My hands went cold. The piping bag trembled slightly before I set it down. Inside. I cleaned my hands slowly, my mind spinning. It wasn't like I hadn't considered it before. Callie's sudden reappearance, her overfamiliarity with Julian's work, the way she lingered at his office like she owned the air there. But hearing it phrased like that, from the inside, made something shift inside me. That night, after closing the bakery, I met up with an ex-employee from Julian's firm. He'd been the one Nora tracked down, a quiet man named Marcus who had left months earlier, just after Callie had arrived. He looked uncomfortable, even sitting across from me in the corner booth of a dim coffee shop. His eyes darted around like he expected Callie to materialize out of the shadows. "I shouldn't be talking to you," he muttered. "Then why did you come?" I asked softly. He sighed, rubbing his temple. "Because she's dangerous. And because you deserve to know what you're up against." "Callie." He nodded. "She's done this before." I leaned forward. "Before? You mean?" "She worked at another firm. Different city. Same pattern. Gets close to someone high up, leaks confidential material, blames them when it comes out. Company nearly went under. The partner took the fall. Lost everything." My pulse pounded in my ears. "And Julian doesn't know?" "Maybe he does. Maybe that's why he's jumpy lately." Marcus lowered his voice. "She doesn't just ruin men, Ray. She ruins reputations. She's like poison that wears perfume." That line stayed with me. Poison that wears perfume. After he left, I sat there long after my drink had gone cold, staring out the window at the flickering streetlight. The city looked calm, but I could feel the storm brewing beneath it. When I got home, Julian was sitting in his office, his laptop glowing blue in the dark. He didn't hear me enter. His shoulders were hunched, his fingers twitching against the keyboard. "Ray," he said when he finally looked up, startled. "You're home late." "I met someone from your firm," I said evenly. His expression darkened. "Why?" "To understand what's happening," I said. "Because right now your company's bleeding secrets, and the person standing next to you seems very comfortable holding the knife." He pushed away from the desk, his jaw tightening. "You're wrong about her." "Am I?" "She's been helping us rebuild," he insisted. "She's been leaking designs," I interrupted. "Or are you going to tell me that's another coincidence?" His silence said enough. I crossed my arms, studying him. He looked tired. Not guilty exactly, something deeper. Haunted. "I can fix this," he said quietly, almost to himself. "By protecting her?" I asked. "Or by finally telling me the truth?" He met my eyes. "You don't understand, Ray. There's more at stake than you think." And that was the problem. Every time he said that, it just made me realize how little I actually knew. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with my notebook open, writing down everything. Dates, times, conversations, strange coincidences. Nora's voice echoed in my head. "Collect truth like evidence. Don't waste emotions on guesses." So I started collecting. The next few days turned into a quiet operation. I stopped asking Julian questions. Instead, I started watching. Listening. At the bakery, customers from Julian's firm came in sometimes. I paid attention to what they said while ordering their coffees. A few mentioned the intern, always with that same mix of awe and suspicion. "She's in with the boss now, isn't she?" one whispered to her colleague. "Practically running the place," the other replied. "You didn't hear it from me, but the last assistant who questioned her? Fired." I smiled politely while handing them their croissants, my heart thudding. Later that week, I noticed something else strange. Julian's bank notifications, he left his laptop open one night, showed recurring consulting payments to a company I didn't recognize. I memorized the name. When I looked it up later, it turned out to be a shell firm registered under an old business partner of his, one who supposedly retired years ago. Every thread I pulled revealed another knot. Nora came over one evening, bringing takeout and her trademark bluntness. "You look like you've been living in a detective novel," she said, dropping onto the couch. "Feels like one," I muttered. "Except the villain keeps smiling and saying she's an intern." Nora handed me a container. "Wait. Then tell me everything." So I did. From the emails to the gossip, from Marcus's warning to Julian's evasiveness. When I finished, Nora leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Okay," she said. "This isn't about a breakup anymore. This is about damage control. Someone's pulling strings, and if Julian's scared, it means they've got leverage." Leverage how? Money. Blackmail. Or reputation. Whatever she's got, she's not doing this alone. I looked at her, my mind racing. "You think someone hired her?" Nora shrugged. "Wouldn't be the first time. Pretty girl, fake remorse, walks into a man's life at his weakest moment. Classic setup. But the question is, why Julian? That was what haunted me. Julian was talented, yes. Ambitious. But he wasn't a billionaire mogul. So why target him? The next day I went to his firm. I didn't tell him I was coming. This time I wasn't bringing lunch or smiles. Just quiet resolve. The receptionist looked startled when I walked in. "Oh, Ms. Callan, Mr. Pierce is in a meeting." "With Callie?" I asked. Her eyes flickered. I believe so." I smiled faintly. "That's fine. I'll wait." Through the glass wall, I could see them, Julian and Callie, sitting across from each other. Callie's expression was almost playful, while Julian looked cornered. Her hand brushed his wrist as she leaned closer, whispering something. He flinched. When she caught sight of me through the glass, she smiled. That same perfect, mocking smile that said, "You're too late." I didn't react. I simply turned and walked away. But that image, her leaning in, him frozen, etched itself in my mind. That evening, I called Marcus again. "She's still doing it," I told him. "I warned you," he said quietly. "She never stops until someone's reputation is ashes." I closed my eyes. Then maybe it's time someone burned her first. Over the next week, I documented everything. Emails, screenshots, bank transfers, office gossip. Every piece of the puzzle. I stored it all in a hidden folder, both digital and physical. But something strange happened then. Julian started acting differently. Calmer. More deliberate. Like a man trying to get ahead of a storm. One night, as I was locking up the bakery, he appeared at the door. His eyes looked exhausted. "Ray," he said softly, "we need to talk." I hesitated. "About Callie?" He nodded. "About everything." I let him in, the scent of bread and sugar lingering in the air around us. He sat down at the counter, rubbing his face. "You were right. She's not who she says she is." I waited, silent. "She came to me months ago," he said. "Said she wanted a second chance." I believed her because, he paused, looking away, because I thought I owed her something. "What could you possibly owe her?" He hesitated. "A secret," he whispered. "One that could destroy both of us." And that was when I realized the worst part wasn't just what Callie had done. It was that Julian had been living in fear long before she ever walked through his office door. I didn't say anything. Not yet. Because if the past was repeating, then I needed to understand how it started the first time. And this time, I'd be ready to end it before it destroyed us both. By the time dawn crept through my bakery windows, I had stopped pretending things were fine. The cinnamon rolls in the oven smelled like comfort, but all I could taste was betrayal. Julian's words from the night before replayed over and over, a secret that could destroy both of us. Whatever that meant, it wasn't just about Callie anymore. This went deeper. Financials, contracts, something corporate and poisonous. That morning I called Nora. No pleasantries. We're digging, I said flatly. Say less, she replied. Coffee first or chaos first? Chaos. Bring your laptop. By noon, she was sitting in my bakery office, her hair tied up in a messy bun, glasses perched on her nose, a steaming mug of espresso in hand. She looked like every hacker's nightmare dressed as a PR strategist. So, she said, cracking her knuckles. We're looking for connections. You said Julian's payments went somewhere weird. Yeah. A shell firm. But what if it's not random? What if it ties back to Callie somehow? Nora's fingers flew across the keyboard. Let's find out. We sifted through public filings, old business registrations, cross-referencing names, addresses, and signatures. It was mind-numbing, until one particular document made both of us freeze. A contract between Pierce Architecture Group and CP Designs. Nora frowned. CP. My throat tightened. Callie Parker. Nora's eyes widened. Oh hell. We opened the document. It was legitimate. Signatures, bank routing details, everything. The contract authorized Pierce Architecture to subcontract select design elements to CP Designs for project efficiency. But the problem was clear. CP Designs didn't exist 6 months ago. It was registered 2 weeks before Callie joined Julian's firm. I scrolled to the signature line. Julian's name was there, bold black ink. My heart dropped. He signed it. I whispered. Nora leaned closer. No, Ray. Look at the timestamp. Look at the digital verification. I did. And suddenly it clicked. Someone copied his signature. I breathed. This wasn't him. She forged it. Nora sat back, letting out a low whistle. That's fraud. And if she used his business account for payments, he's legally responsible. Julian hadn't just been manipulated. He was being framed. I felt a rush of conflicting emotions, anger, pity, disbelief. For a moment, I almost wanted to call him, tell him what we'd found. But then I remembered his half-truths, his evasions, his silence when I needed honesty. No. He didn't get to be rescued that easily. Print everything, I told Nora. Every file, every date, every transaction. If she's been funneling stolen designs, we'll find proof. She nodded, hitting print. You're going to confront him? Not yet, I said. First, I want to know how deep this goes. By the time the documents piled high on my counter, I'd seen enough to feel the floor shifting beneath me. CP Designs wasn't just siphoning small amounts. It had invoices from multiple clients. Big ones. Ones that should have gone directly through Julian's firm. Callie wasn't freeloading. She was building a shadow company using Julian's reputation as camouflage. When I finally showed up at his office that afternoon, the tension was already thick. His assistant tried to stall me. Mr. Pierce is in trouble. I cut in, brushing past her. Julian was sitting at his desk, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Papers covered every inch of it. Ray, he said, standing up quickly. You shouldn't be here, Ditto. I said, dropping the folder on his desk. Because your intern isn't just an intern. She's your silent business partner, and your biggest threat. He blinked, confusion flashing across his face before he opened the folder. His eyes darted across the pages, and I watched his face pale. What is this? A contract between your firm and CP Designs, I said. Filed under your name. But guess who owns CP Designs? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The silence said everything. Finally, he whispered, Callie. She used you, I said, my voice tight. She registered her own company, funneled your firm's designs through it, and now she's sitting on proof that could destroy your career. Julian sank into his chair, the weight of it all pressing down like a storm. Ray, I didn't know. I swear I didn't. I believe you, I said quietly. But belief doesn't erase signatures. Or bank trails. He rubbed his face. I thought she wanted to make amends. She said she had ideas for client partnerships, She even helped land one. I didn't. She forged the deal, I interrupted. She used your name to launder stolen work. Julian stared at me, his voice trembling. You shouldn't have gotten involved in this. I laughed softly. You think I could have stayed out of it while my name was dragged into office gossip and my bakery became the pity topic of your firm? No, Julian. I didn't do this for you. He looked up startled. I'm helping the business, I said coldly, not the man. For a long time, the only sound in the room was the hum of his computer and the faint ticking of the clock. Finally, he whispered, What do I do? You don't, I said. We do. I'll handle the narrative. Nora's already started tracking how far the story spread. But if Callie's got evidence, she's going to use it soon. We need to move before she does. Julian looked at me with a mix of gratitude and guilt. You don't have to fix my mess. I know, I said. But I can't stand by and watch her destroy something you built. Even if I don't trust you, I still believe in your work. He looked away, his jaw tightening. I don't deserve that. No, I said softly. You don't. That night, Nora and I sat in my bakery, surrounded by stacks of papers and open laptops. The smell of sugar and espresso mixed with tension. This is going to get worse before it gets better, she said. I know, I replied. But at least now we're not blind. We drafted a plan, gather proof, quietly alert key clients, and prepare a press statement to control the narrative if the leak went public. As I typed, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. A text. Stop digging, Ray. Some truths aren't yours to expose. See. I stared at it, my stomach tightening. Nora leaned over. Who's that? I showed her. She exhaled sharply. She knows you're onto her. I locked my phone. Good. Let her know I'm not scared. But the truth? As I looked out at the empty street beyond the bakery window, a chill ran through me. Because this wasn't just a corporate scheme anymore. This was personal. And if Callie Parker thought she could silence me, she was about to learn. I collect truth like recipes. Precise, patient, and served cold. By the time I walked into Julian's firm that morning, I wasn't nervous anymore. I was surgical. Every doubt, every flicker of emotion had hardened into clarity. I wasn't there to argue, or cry, or beg for truth. I was there to expose it. The receptionist barely got out a greeting before I said, Callie Parker. Where is she? Her eyes darted toward the main conference room. She's in a meeting with the design team. Perfect. I walked straight through the glass doors. Heads turned. Whispers rippled through the office like wind through tall grass. The intern turned office darling was sitting at the end of the conference table, surrounded by staff who looked too exhausted to keep pretending everything was fine. Callie smiled when she saw me. Ray. What a surprise. I returned it, matching her tone perfectly. I do love surprises, remember? The team exchanged uncertain glances. Julian wasn't in sight yet, probably hiding in his office, trying to figure out how to salvage what little credibility he had left. Actually, I continued, pulling a folder from my bag. I thought I'd drop by to clear up some confusion. You know, about titles, roles, responsibilities. Callie tilted her head, her confidence unshaken. I'm not sure I follow. Oh, I think you do. I set the folder down in the middle of the table. You introduced yourself as an intern. But interns don't sign contracts under company names. They don't file invoices under shell corporations. And they definitely don't register their own businesses to mirror the firms they assist. Silence fell. One of the junior designers coughed nervously. Callie's smile flickered. Just a hairline crack, before she composed herself again. You're misunderstanding. CP Designs was a collaborative side project. Julian approved it. I raised a brow. Really? Because Julian's digital signature on those contracts came from a VPN in your name, and those collaborations routed money straight to your personal account. Her face tightened. Would you like me to read the email you sent to the client? I asked, opening my folder. The one where you said, and I quote, I can fast-track the design if payments go through my partner's private channel. Or should we start with the invoice trail instead? Someone near the back muttered, Oh my God. Callie stood up, her voice suddenly sharp. You have no right to come in here and accuse me of anything. You're not even part of this firm. Funny, I said. Neither are you. The door behind me opened. Julian walked in. For a moment, no one breathed. His eyes darted between me, the folder, and Callie. What's going on here? Callie turned toward him, instantly softening her voice. She's twisting everything, Julian. She's been obsessed with me ever since. Don't, I said quietly. Don't insult me with bad acting. Julian looked from one of us to the other, confusion morphing into dawning horror as he saw the documents on the table. Ray, he said carefully, what is this? Proof, I said simply. Proof that your intern has been using your name and your firm to run a stolen design pipeline. She forged your signature, diverted client payments, and filed fake contracts under a company she created herself. Murmurs spread through the room. One of the senior architects stood up, glaring at Callie. Is that true? Callie's face turned crimson. I don't know what she's talking about. She's talking about the reason your paychecks came from two sources, I said. And the reason Julian's accounts are now being flagged for financial discrepancies. Julian's jaw clenched. Callie, tell me she's lying. Callie stared at him, her breath shaking. Then suddenly, her voice softened. Julian, I did it for you. The room froze. Julian's expression went blank. What? I was trying to help, she insisted. You were losing clients, remember? You said the firm needed something big, a boost. I found a way. I used the name, the contacts. I did what you couldn't. You committed fraud, I said sharply. Shut up, she snapped, spinning toward me. You don't get to lecture me about loyalty. You left him when he needed you most. I didn't leave, I said quietly. You invaded. The tension broke like glass. Julian stepped forward, his voice low but trembling with fury. You've destroyed everything I've built. Callie's eyes filled with tears. No, Julian. We built it. Together. You said you believed in me. You said, enough. His tone cut through the air. You're done here. Security will. Before he could finish, Callie grabbed the folder off the table and flung it to the floor. Pages scattered everywhere like feathers. You think you're clean in this? She hissed. You think she doesn't know what you've been hiding? Julian froze. The entire office went silent again. Even the sound of the air conditioner seemed to stop. Callie straightened, her expression suddenly calm. Too calm. Tell her, Julian. Tell her how much you really knew. Or should I? He didn't respond. His face had gone pale. She smiled coldly. That's what I thought. Then she turned to me, eyes gleaming with venom. Be careful who you call the villain, Ray. Some stories don't end the way you think. And with that, she swept past me, her heels clicking against the tile. The glass door swung shut behind her. I stood there, heart pounding, the silence pressing in. Julian looked at me helplessly. Ray, I said. Not here. I gathered the scattered papers, tucking them back into the folder. My hands were steady, but my chest felt hollow. As I walked toward the exit, I could feel eyes following me, pitying, curious, relieved it wasn't them in the spotlight. When I reached the door, I paused just long enough to say, without turning around, you wanted me to stop digging, Julian. But now I think I've only scratched the surface. And then I left, not victorious, not satisfied, but shaken. Because as much as I wanted to believe Callie's last words were another manipulation, the look on Julian's face told me one terrible truth. She wasn't lying. The morning after the showdown, I woke up to chaos. Not the kind that explodes. The kind that hums beneath everything, quiet but relentless. My phone was vibrating nonstop. Messages from Nora, missed calls from Julian, and a half-dozen notifications from business blogs and gossip sites. The headlines said it all. Architecture firm in turmoil, insider fraud revealed. The intern who broke the boss. And somewhere in the mix, the woman who exposed it all, Raina Callan. My name wasn't supposed to be in this story. But once the internet decides you're a character, you don't get to choose your role. By noon, my bakery was full of curious whispers disguised as customers. A few regulars offered supportive smiles, but others watched me like I was part of a scandalous show they'd paid to attend. Did you really catch them in the act? One woman asked casually as I bagged her pastries. No, I said, forcing a polite smile. Just the paperwork. When she left, I leaned against the counter, exhaling slowly. My life had become the headline people read before their morning coffee. Nora arrived a few hours later, pushing through the crowd like a bodyguard in heels. She waved her phone at me. "You're trending." "Great," I muttered. "Every girl's dream." "They're calling you a hero," she said. "Some blogs think you exposed corporate corruption. Others think you were Julian's scorned lover getting revenge." I laughed bitterly. So either Joan of Arc or the jealous ex classic range. Nora set her phone down, her expression softening. "You okay?" I thought about it. The answer wasn't yes, but it wasn't no either. "I don't know. Everything feels loud." She nodded. That's what happens when truth finally makes noise. By evening, Julian showed up. I knew he would. He always did when things fell apart. He stood in the doorway of the bakery, looking smaller somehow. His once pristine suit was wrinkled, his eyes shadowed. The smell of sugar and fresh bread clashed with the scent of stress he carried in with him. "Ray," he said softly, "can we talk?" I didn't invite him in. I just crossed my arms and leaned against the counter. "You've had plenty of chances to talk." "This isn't about excuses," he said quickly. "The firm's collapsing. Investors pulled out. Half the clients want refunds, and the board's threatening to dissolve the company." I stayed quiet. "She's gone," he added. "Callie. Disappeared. The lawyers can't even find her. It's like she never existed. Except in the contracts and the damage," I said. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "I know I failed. I should have told you everything earlier. I thought I could protect you." I laughed, not cruelly, just tiredly. "By lying." He flinched. "You built your world on half-truths and called it love," I said quietly. "You don't protect people by keeping them blind." He stepped closer. "Ray, please. Don't walk away from me now. You know me better than anyone." "Not anymore," I said. "You've become a stranger with my name still in his mouth." He swallowed hard, eyes glistening. "I never meant for any of this to touch you." "It already did," I whispered. "And you let it." We stood there, surrounded by the quiet hum of the bakery, the whir of fridges, the soft ticking of the clock, the faint scent of burnt caramel from the oven. It felt like the world had narrowed down to the space between us. Finally, I said, "You should go. Handle your firm. Handle your mess. I'm done trying to clean up after the man who swore he didn't make one." He hesitated, like there was something else he wanted to say, but then he nodded, defeated, and left. The door chimed behind him, and I felt the silence rush in like a wave. That night, Nora came over again. She didn't bring food or files this time, just wine and empathy. "I told you once," she said as we sat on the floor, legs crossed, bottle between us. "Sometimes survival looks like silence, until it's time to speak." I sipped my drink, staring out the window at the quiet street below. "Feels like I've done enough speaking for a lifetime." She smiled faintly. "Not yet. You're still in the middle of your story." I shook my head. "No, Nora. This isn't a story anymore. It's cleanup." She leaned back, studying me. "You think cleanup can't be power?" The question stayed with me long after she left. The next few days blurred together. Lawyers, reporters, and endless statements. I avoided interviews, ignored messages, and buried myself in baking. The rhythm helped. Mix, fold, knead, repeat. It was the only kind of control I had left. Sometimes, customers whispered about me like I couldn't hear. "That's her. The one who exposed him." And maybe that was fine. Maybe that's what I'd become. The woman who burned down the illusion. But late at night, when the ovens were off and the world was quiet, I'd think about Julian. About the way he looked at me that last day. Not angry, not defensive. Just hollow. Some part of me still wanted to understand what Callie had meant when she said, "Julian knew more than you think." But another part, the part that finally valued peace over answers, whispered, "Let it go." Maybe survival wasn't about proving who was right or wrong. Maybe it was about knowing when to stop digging in the ashes. Still, as I turned off the bakery lights that night, I couldn't help but wonder. If the truth had finally come out, why did it still feel like something was missing? 6 months later, the scent of fresh bread had once again become my favorite kind of silence. No gossip. No chaos. No Julian. No Callie. Just the rhythm of ovens and the hum of peace. The sign above my bakery was new, a simple whiteboard with clean, hand-painted letters that read, "The Honest Crumb." When I'd unveiled it, the small crowd that gathered outside had clapped softly, like they understood the meaning beneath the name. It wasn't just a bakery anymore. It was a statement, a promise to myself, and anyone who walked through my doors, that everything I made, everything I did, would be honest. No more pretending. No more smoothing things over for people who broke me. The first few weeks after the rebrand were slow. I didn't mind. It gave me time to breathe, to repaint the walls, to fix the creaky oven door that Julian once promised to replace and never did. But then the story, my story, started circulating online. Someone on a local blog had written about the baker who exposed a corporate fraud and rebuilt her life with sugar and grit. It went viral in the way small, honest things sometimes do. Suddenly, reporters wanted to feature the honest crumb in lifestyle magazines. Influencers stopped by for croissants. The local paper ran a headline, "From Betrayal to Business Boom, How One Woman Turned Her Scandal into Strength." At first, I felt exposed again. I didn't want to be a symbol. But then women started coming in, not for pastries, but for conversation. One woman around my age came in one rainy morning and said softly, "I read about you. My husband's been lying about his business for years. I thought I was crazy for doubting him, until I read your story." I handed her a muffin and said, "You're not crazy. You're just seeing clearly." That became a theme. Women came with stories about betrayal, about loss, about starting over, and I listened. Sometimes I offered advice, sometimes just coffee and quiet. Word spread, and soon I started hosting Sunday sessions in the bakery after closing hours, informal gatherings where women talked about boundaries, rebuilding, and self-worth. I called it crumb circles, because sometimes all you have left are crumbs, but that's enough to start baking again. Nora helped me organize the first one. She stood by the counter with her notepad, smiling like a proud sister. "You've turned your pain into something beautiful," she said. I looked around at the women laughing and sharing stories over tea. "No," I said. "I just stopped pretending my pain was something to hide." As for Julian, his name faded from the papers almost as quickly as it had exploded into them. His firm dissolved within 3 months. He sold his shares, left the city quietly. No public statement. No apology, no grand gestures, just silence. Sometimes I wondered where he went, whether he started over, whether he ever forgave himself. But I never looked him up. I didn't need to. And Callie? Of course she resurfaced. A viral video appeared one morning, her face on screen, tearful and remorseful, claiming she'd been manipulated, that she was the real victim of a powerful man and a jealous ex. The comments told a different story. No one was buying it. "Isn't that the same woman who forged contracts?" one user wrote. Another replied, "Funny how victims always resurface when the attention fades." I didn't respond. I didn't post. I didn't defend myself. Because peace, I'd learned, doesn't need an audience. A few months later, I was interviewed for a local business podcast. The host asked, "If you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?" I smiled and said, "You don't owe anyone your silence." Afterward, I locked up the bakery, walked home, and sat on my balcony with a cup of tea. The city glowed quietly beneath the setting sun, soft pinks and golds melting into the skyline. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was waiting for anything. Not for closure. Not for answers. Just the next sunrise. A few nights later, Nora and I were closing up shop after another packed day when she asked, "Do you ever miss him?" I paused, considering it. "I miss who I thought he was," I said. "But not who he turned out to be." She smiled. "Then you've healed." Maybe I had. Because as I turned the bakery lights off, I didn't feel anger or sadness. Just gratitude. Gratitude that everything fell apart exactly the way it needed to. That betrayal had become a blueprint. That silence had turned into strength. That the honest crumb wasn't just a name. It was a life rebuilt, one loaf at a time. And when I walked out into the night, the city air smelled like rain and possibility. They say revenge is sweet. But I learned truth is sweeter. It doesn't rot your soul. It's been a year since the storm. Since the whispers, the tabloids, the heartbreak, the city feels smaller now, but in a comforting way, like it finally fits me. The camera drifts across the bakery, the honest crumb, alive and golden. Trays of pastries line the counter. Laughter fills the air. Ray, now more grounded than ever, is teaching a small baking class. She dusts flour off her hands and smiles as a little girl carefully shapes dough into a heart. Perfect, Ray says softly. See? It doesn't have to look like everyone else's. It just has to hold together. The girl grins. Her mother, one of Ray's regulars, watches with admiration. Ray looks peaceful. Not the brittle calm of someone holding back tears, but the quiet confidence of someone who has let go. As the class ends, she wipes the counter and takes off her apron. The sunlight hits her hand, and there's a simple silver ring on her finger. Not from Julian. Not from anyone, really. A ring she bought herself after realizing she didn't need someone else's promise to feel whole. Nora walks in with her usual smirk, holding 2 coffees. Mrs. Peace herself, she teases. Ray laughs. Miss Peace. Still happily unmarried to chaos. They sit by the window, watching the street outside. The same city that once watched her crumble now watches her thrive. Remember when you thought your life was over? Nora says. Ray nods. It was. The old version anyway. She takes a sip of coffee and smiles faintly. Turns out, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Cut to slow, cinematic shots. Ray arranging loaves on a wooden tray. A customer hugging her after class. The bakery door closing softly at sunset. People talk about closure like it's a door you slam shut. But sometimes it's a window you open to let the light back in. She looks around her bakery one last time, eyes calm, full of quiet gratitude. The recipe for peace? A pinch of truth, a spoon of courage, and not 1 ounce of regret. The screen fades to white as the bakery bell rings, a soft, hopeful chime.